All righty, we are live. Welcome back to the Fast Break podcast here on the Variety Sports Network. I'm your host, Shoot the Rock, and college basketball is now officially underway. So we're gonna be here every Thursday night now. I think is what we decided we're gonna do. Talking college ball. So this week, we're gonna break down some of these games, the high quality games earlier in the week. Tonight and last night were a little bit slower, but Monday and Tuesday we had some good power conference games. So we're going to start off kind of talking about those. Then next, we're going to hop into some of the games to watch this weekend. A lot of you guys I know probably are still on football mode, especially, college football is really, kind of getting to the end here. NFL's, we're about halfway through the season, but college basketball, there's some really good games already starting tomorrow for this weekend. So I'm really excited. So I'm going to preview those and then going to give my Final Four predictions. I realize, I've kind of been just kind of going through teams to watch, players to watch, some like conference predictions, but I never officially gave my Final Four national championship predictions. So that is how we're going to end the show today. And feel free to drop yours in the chat. So let's get into some of these games here once, if my freaking second monitor will stop bugging out like it has been. But yeah, the first game that we're going to start with here, that was a good one on opening night. Arizona knocks off the defending national champion Florida Gators 93-87 in Las Vegas to open the season. I mean, if you're a sicko like me, you were watching Queens and Winthrop at 8 a.m. or Bradley St. Bonaventure at 10. That Field of 68 marathon was going on all day. Those were some good ones. But this game was really for probably the more mainstream college basketball fans, the one that started this year. And boy, was it a banger. I mean, it really went back and forth. Was pretty, it was a 4-point game at halftime. Arizona ends up winning by 6. I mean, Florida got off to a hot start to start this game. Then Arizona kind of came back. The real difference maker for Arizona in this one was Koa Pete, the freshman, really shined in this game. And I mean, taking on the defending national champion, it was quite impressive. We went for 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists on 11 of 18 shooting. Got to the line a good amount, knocking down 8 of his 12 free throws. So he played really well. A really strong game from him, as well as Jaden Bradley for the Wildcats. He went for 27 points with 5 assists on 9 of 14 shooting, 9 of 10 from the line. So really, really good game from Arizona. Like I said, it was one of those games where, I 100% thought Florida was going to win this game. And then just for Arizona to kind of take it, like I said, at points, Florida got off to a really hot start, but to then just have Arizona be the one to kind of take it, I was quite impressed. Florida, I mean, they're still going to be a good team. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, when you win the national championship, the expectation is high once again the following season. But I still thought they played a pretty good game. What really the notice for me is going to be in the backcourt. Now, Xavier Lee and Boogie Fland are, they're solid guards. Like, they're good transfer portal additions that the Gators had this year. But you can just kind of tell they're not as physical as why am I now blanking on his name? But the Florida backcourt from last year. Why am I blanking? Of course, I'm freaking blanking on this. So the lights are too bright. But yeah, like Florida's guard play last year is what really took them, deep in the tournament. So yeah, losing Walter Clayton. That's what I'm thinking. Walter Clayton, then the other guy that was at FAU before. Why am I blanking on his name? But yeah, to lose those guys is gonna be kind of tough. It's gonna take some time to adjust. I mean, Thomas Haw, who's been there for a while, he was Florida's leader in this one, going for 27 points. And then, I mean, Xavier Lee did have 14 points. He just didn't shoot the ball great. So, yeah, the Gators, well, I think they'll be fine. I still think they're going to be one of the better teams in the country. Like I said, just losing as much as they did from that team last year, it's going to be tough to kind of keep up at the pace they were. But, yeah, so Arizona's a really good win. And like I said, I really like when teams do play these high leverage games. Like I mentioned to kind of start this. So the last 2 nights have been a little slow. I mean, like right now I'm watching Ohio and Illinois State. That's probably the best game tonight. So I like when these power conference teams play each other in these games. Now, granted, would I love to see them on campus? Maybe, home and home between Arizona and Florida rather than this game in Vegas. Yeah, but honestly, we'll take it. So really good win for Arizona to start the year. They were one of the teams I kind of talked about in the Big 12. Granted, I don't think they get as much of a spotlight as a Houston or a Texas Tech, but I do think the Wildcats are still going to be a very good team this year. So nice win for them to start the year. Then the second big game, second one of this Hall of Fame Classic in Vegas, the college debut of AJ Dybantsa. Sorry, I'm going to struggle saying his name all year. I really shouldn't, but he goes off for 21 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, 9 and 18 from the field, hit his 1 3-point attempt in BYU's 71-66 win over Villanova. This one was not as close as the early game, but I do have to give Villanova credit. Coming back, they did end up covering. Like they made it a closer game in the second half. They trailed pretty big. Yeah, they were down 10 at half. So to be able to get it to single digits at one point, this game was tied later in the second half too. So definitely a good game from them. But yeah, Dybantsa really showed out in this one. And then I was really impressed with Keba Keita as well. He had 8 points, 7 rebounds, as well as 3 blocks. Like on the defensive end, you could just really feel his physicality. He was playing really well defensively. As well as then, kind of setting up some of these other guys on the offensive well. Richie Saunders also had a good game, 15 points for him, 7 rebounds. And Rob Wright III, 14 points, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. So all around, BYU's top guys definitely delivered. That's what they expected out of them. And them too. They're another team really highly touted here in the Big 12, probably more than Arizona. So Cougars played really well in this one. On the Villanova side, they're led by Bryce Lindsey. He had 22 points. He was their leading scorer. Other than that, nothing really too notable. The funny thing is Devin Askew still playing for Villanova. He scored no point. He's essentially just running around. He had no points, no rebounds, no assists. 0 of 3 shooting, in his only 3 attempts. I guess he did only play 13 minutes, but he did start. And then Lindsey kind of played more than him. So yeah, that was just kind of. It's just kind of funny to see him still kind of kicking it around here in college and then just really not doing anything. It's one of those it was a good sign last year, a North Carolina Pitt game of RJ Davis, get ready to learn LinkedIn, buddy. That's Devin Askew, but probably to an even greater level. And then the final really notable game here from the first 3 days, Duke takes down Texas 75-60. In Charlotte in the Dickie V Invitational on Tuesday. And while, it wasn't as lights out of a debut for Cameron Boozer as it was for, say, Dybantsa or Koa Pete for Arizona, he still ends up finishing with 15 points, 13 rebounds. They showed on the broadcast he's the 5th Duke player to debut with a double-double, freshman to debut with a double-double in the last 30 years. So ended up still being a good game. And Duke got off to a kind of slow start. And this game just in total was very slow. It was very physical in the first half. And then the second half, they kind of started calling more stuff, didn't let the guys play as much. But yeah, Texas led this game by a point at halftime, but Duke really, closed it out in the second half, put their foot on the gas. Another really impressive performance was from Isaiah Evans. He was the leader in this one with 23 points, 7 of 13 shooting, 4 of 8 from beyond the arc, including 5 of 6 at the free throw line. So he played really well. Duke this year, they're not going to be as star-studded as last year. Well, yeah, they do have the Boozer twins. They're really going to, I think, have to rely more on their depth. And you kind of see it in this one, Nick Kamenia had 4 points in this one. I was impressed with him off the bench. Really, none of their guys off the bench, their stat lines really jumped off the page. But, going 9 guys deep where you're feeling pretty confident with all those guys on the floor, that's going to be what it takes for Duke to be successful this year. On the Texas side, they're led by Darian Swain. He had 16 points. Actually, I forget his first name. But Swain had 16 and 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 7 of 18 shooting. Like I said, Texas, they could be a decent squad in the SEC here. Granted, the SEC is pretty loaded. It was one of those, like I said, when they in the first half when they were allowed to be very physical with Duke, it made like they were kind of able to make Duke play their game and like bring them down to their level, play like a more like physical, like sloppy game. But in the second half, or no, Dalen Swain. But in the second half, when things, really, kind of opened up a little bit more, that's when Duke kind of opened it up and ended up kind of just running away with this one. Volkidis, Matas Volkidis also for Texas had 15 points, 8 rebounds. And then off the bench, Jordan Pope had 15. But yeah, really just not a good shooting game for either team. I mean, Texas shot 19 of 59 and Duke shot 22 of 52. Texas just kind of dominated Duke on the board, especially in the first half. So like I said, it was just kind of one of those when the game was like physical and, allowed to go both ways, then it was Texas was in it. But yeah, once it got a little bit more open and free flowing, that's when Duke really kind of pulled away. Sorry, I've been a little congested the last couple of days, chat. So that's why I've kind of been stopping, take some water breaks and stuff like that. Plus, you guys got anything to add down in the chat, feel free. So looking through here, just kind of any other notable results. Like I said, pretty loaded first 2 days, especially like Monday was almost like too much basketball. Like I said, went starting at like 8 a.m. was a lot of fun, but then crazy games throughout. There's like a couple upsets, like New Orleans took down TCU. Hawaii Pacific, a Division II school, beat Boise State. So that one was pretty crazy. Loyola Chicago, they didn't get upset, but they beat Cleveland State on a buzzer beater. So that was pretty cool. Auburn got taken to overtime by Bethune-Cookman. Bethune-Cookman's like half-court shot they got fouled on, and then Arturio Morris for them hit all 3 free throws to force overtime, but then Tigers end up holding on, taking it in overtime 95-90. So there were some good games. Florida Atlantic, Boston College. Granted, Florida Atlantic's not as good as they were when they had that Final Four team. Boston College is going to be like the basement of the ACC, but that was a good win for FAU on night one. Anything else really notable? I'm trying to remember because I've been doing like daily like TikTok kind of recap. Well, not daily, but close to daily. I did one for the first 2 days. Like I said, these next 2 days, I'm going to do one tonight, kind of combining them. I think like I said, the New Orleans one that I already shouted out. Really other than that, nothing too crazy. Like I said, there was these just kind of big games start. It was nice starting the day with like Winthrop taking down Queens, St. Bonnie's taking down Bradley. Drake took down Northern Arizona. High Point's going to be really good. I mean, they won the Big South at least last year. I forget if it's been the past 2 years. Like they honestly could be like, they're going to be like at large bid good if they somehow like get beat in the Big South tournament. Granted, will the committee actually put in 2 Big South teams? Probably not, but then what was the last game in that one in the Field 68? Oh, it was South Dakota State and Merrimack. I believe South Dakota State won that one, right? I didn't miss that, did I? Sorry, a lot of scrolling here. Jeez, yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's so many games. Yeah, South Dakota State took down Merrimack. So yeah, I think that's really kind of all the notable opening night games. Like I said, this Duke Texas game night 2 is really the only like big game. There wasn't really any the craziest upset was like New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT, took down Fordham. The A-10 was like undefeated in games prior to that. Oh, and then UT Martin's win over UNLV was like a pretty good win. Oregon almost lost to Hawaii at home. So the Hawaii schools are out here giving people problems. They're playing ball on the island. Who knows? Like this year's Maui Invitational Field is one of like the kind of weakest in a while. Maybe Chaminade ends up winning the Maui this year. We never know. But let's move on, kind of talk about some of the games to watch this weekend. So first, we got to start with Friday night. And this is what I'm saying of like, I want more teams to play home and homes because this one should be a banger. We have Kansas at North Carolina on Friday night in Chapel Hill. It's going to be at 7 Eastern on ESPN. Carolina's a 1.5 point favorite. I'm really excited to watch the 2 freshmen go at it in this one. Darian Peterson for Kansas up against Caleb Wilson for North Carolina. 2 Two, like I said, should be like top 10 picks, if not even higher than that. I would say a lot of the mock drafts I'm seeing are 2 top 10 picks. So even if you're not like a huge college hoops guy, you're more of like an NBA, but like, following the draft prospects. And if you're not a college football fan, I mean, even if you are a college football fan, I don't think the slate's great tomorrow night. Definitely for me, like this is the game of the night to watch across the whole kind of like NBA, college basketball, college football landscape. I'm really excited for this one. And like Kansas done a good job like doing this. Like I know they had a home and home with, or I forget if it was a home and home or maybe just UConn came to them the last couple of years. Or no, it was, I'm sorry, last year they played this game in Kansas and Kansas won, where they were up big, but Carolina came back, made it close. That's what I'm thinking of. And then 2 years ago, Kansas hosted UConn. I forget if that was a home and home or just kind of a one game thing. But yeah, this really, like I said, really should be a good matchup. Like I said, Peterson and Wilson are the ones I'm really excited to watch. Flory Badunga is another really solid guy for Kansas. He had 23 points in that first game for them against Green Bay, which they won pretty handily. Like I said, both these teams they had pretty easy games on Monday night against Green Bay and Central Arkansas, respectively. On the Carolina side, Henry Vasar is another guy to watch. He had 14 and 10 in that win over Central Arkansas. I was really big fan of his at Arizona last year, so he's a solid big. So to watch him and like Badunga go back at it could be kind of fun. Seth Trimble's still there for UNC as well. So this should be a good one. If I had to make a pick, I'm probably leaning with, let's see, I also pulled up all the projections in this one. Yeah, both the sites that I go to, Haslametrics and Warren Nolan, have UNC winning this one by 3 points. And you can see the logo in the background, see who I'm a fan of. But honestly, I don't really like Kansas that much either. So I'm gonna go with, I agree, just since it's in Chapel Hill, I'm gonna go with the Tar Heels to win that one. Other notable game on Friday, tomorrow night, would be Georgetown at Maryland. That's probably this, other kind of top game. Georgetown, not what they used to be anymore, obviously, but this being like a regional game, I'm a fan of these two teams playing. Like I said, Georgetown is on the up and up. Maryland, still a solid squad. Granted, they lost their head coach from a year ago. Maryland's definitely gonna take a step back this year, but I think this should be a good one tomorrow night. This one's a little bit earlier, 6 Eastern on FS1. The Terrapins are led by Pharrell Payne. He had 21 points in their win against Coppin State on Monday. Coppin State's a team that, I forget if it was I think it was 2 years ago, took Georgetown to overtime on opening night. So kind of funny that Maryland, had no trouble with them. Georgetown, they beat Morgan State 87-70 in their opener. They're led by KJ Lewis, who had 14 points for them in that one. So should be a pretty good game. Malik Mack is a guard who's still there for Georgetown from last year. So he should be, pretty exciting to watch again, kind of their floor general. On the Maryland side, any other notable guys? Let me check here from their game on Monday. Payne Saunders went for 14. Elijah Saunders. Other than that, yeah, nothing really crazy. But yeah, like I said, Georgetown's still kind of a team. They're better. They're going to be better than they have been the last couple of years. But both the projections in this one show Maryland winning pretty handily by double digits. So I'm probably going to have to agree with the Terrapins taking that one. Then probably the mid-major game tomorrow night to watch. Weirdly in Frisco, Texas, but at 7 or 8 Eastern. I don't know if it's on TV. It might be an ESPN Plus or like a Mountain West networking, which the Mountain West network is free. You just got to get the Mountain West app. VCU and Utah State. So obviously Utah State took VCU's coach. Sorry, I forget his name again. I should have had this pulled up. So this is kind of one of those hey, you took our coach, you have to play us. So I'm a fan of that. And these are two teams that have both been pretty good. I mean, Utah State should be in the running for a at-large bid out, or to win the Midwest or Mountain West. Sorry, not. Wait, no. Oh, yeah. Wait, that was a couple years ago. That Ryan. No, it was the other way. Ryan Odom went from. I'm tripping. He went from Utah State to VCU, and now Now he's at Virginia. Am I right though? Was Gerard Calhoun this guy? No, I'm thinking of Ryan Odom. Sorry. That was a couple years ago. They took their coach. This is still from back then. So yeah, that's kind of like I said, mid-major game to watch. A10, probably top dog, I would say. I believe they were picked to win the preseason out of the A10. So VCU against Utah State. And plus, like I said, both the projection sites I use, they have opposite teams winning in this one. I'm trying to see if there is a spread here for this game. Utah State is -2.5. I guess I would probably end up going with Utah State to win this one then. Both these teams got a W in their first game. VCU beating Wagner 103-74. Utah State beat a Division II school or something, or like some school doesn't have a logo, so they're not D1, and I've never heard of them. Leaders for this one, Lazar Djokovic was the leading scorer for VCU, then MJ Collins for Utah State. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go with the Aggies, take that one. Then on Saturday, we got some more really good games. Like I said, kind of a down weekend for college football. So I'd maybe check out some of these college basketball games. It starts right away at noon Eastern on Saturday with Alabama and St. John's. And now Alabama is like the king of scheduling all these tough games. This one's at the Garden too, on FS1. So it should be a really good matchup. I forget. I don't think these teams played last year. But two of the top, 15 teams in the country is, St. John's ranked 5th, Alabama's ranked 15th. Dylan Mitchell and LeBaron Philon are the leading scorers for these teams. I mean, these are two teams I've talked about, I feel like, a good amount in the preseason, just since I'm high on both of them. Like I said, St. John's will be competing for the Big East. Alabama's will be competing for the SEC. Kind of just looking here at the box scores from both these teams' first games. Alabama, like I said, led by LeBaron Philon. Henry Mallette, or Houston Mallette, also had a really good game for them. 15 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. Philon had eight assists to go with his rebounds. And then, on the St. John's side, you got Zuby Ejiofor, as well as Mitchell. Like I mentioned, like I said, they beat Quinnipiac 108-74 in their opener. So two really good squads here. Ian Jackson also had 15 for the Red Storm. Looking at the projections, St. John's is favored. Both the projections have it a little bit closer, but St. John's winning. So I'm going to go Alabama covers, but St. John's gets the dub. Then the next kind of biggest game, probably the next biggest, I would say the biggest one. There's going to be some other games like I touch on, but I'm going to go a little bit out of order here. Saturday night, this is another one. A home, like not a neutral site game. 7 Eastern on Fox. The 14th ranked Arkansas Razorbacks head to the 22nd ranked Michigan State Spartans. This game is in East Lansing. So like I said, should be a rocking crowd. I mean, the Breslin Center is one of the best arenas in all of college basketball. And, this is one maybe not as highly touted as, like I said, that Alabama St. John's game. But, I mean, it's getting the prime time Saturday night slot on a broadcast network. So that's pretty impressive. That's what I'm saying. College basketball, man. Y'all got to be tuning in. Do not wait until March to watch. Now is the time to watch. So looking at this one, both these teams won their first game as well. Like I said, a lot of just bye games, especially when you got a game like this coming up. Arkansas beat Southern 109-77. Michigan State beat Colgate 80-69. Leading scorers for both teams in those games, Trayvon Brazile for Arkansas with 25, Jackson Kohler with 16 for Michigan State. So this is one, looking at the projections here, they have it, Michigan State winning. I mean, when you see the line there, 1.5, like it's going to be a close game regardless. So, and I really think it will be. I think, this one could go either way. very easily. Two very well coached teams, highly touted coaches, and John Calipari and Tom Izzo. So that's another reason why I'm really excited to watch this one. But yeah, I'm gonna have to agree. I'm gonna say probably looking at both those teams' first games, I'm gonna say some pretty high scoring ones. I think both teams are gonna be able to score the ball offensively, both inside and out. So I'm gonna go Michigan State in a pretty close game, pretty close high scoring game. Other games to kind of watch here on Saturday, we got two on Peacock at the Mohegan Sun Arena in Connecticut. I believe this is also some sort of like Hall of Fame series thing. First one, or no, actually, well, the first one on the day, right? I believe it is the George. Sorry, I should have had this pulled. So many games. I didn't write. I have like the projections on one sheet and then all the like games on another tab. Yeah, okay. So the first one is George Washington, South Florida. So another team, the George Washington, the Revolutionaries, they're going to be one of the better teams in the A10 this year against South Florida, who should be a really good American squad. So like these are two of the better mid-major teams. This one's at 1:30 Eastern on Peacock. Both teams won their first game with George Washington taking down – who'd they beat again? George Washington took down Maine, and then USF took down Florida Atlantic. Leading scores, West Ennis scored 22 for USF. Luke Hunger for George Washington. So like I said, both these teams were picked pretty highly in their respective conferences. Preseason polls, granted, I don't think George Washington was as high, but like I kind of talked about last week, like VCU, Loyola Chicago, George Washington, SLU, Dayton are all going to be, I mean, even you want to throw in George Mason, St. Joe's, like there's going to be like 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7 teams that could compete for the A10 championship this year. And George Washington's going to be one of those teams. I mean, obviously Memphis is the class of the American, but South Florida is definitely giving them a run for their money. Both the projections have South Florida winning this one in a close game. I'm trying to see. Yeah, it doesn't have a lineup for this one. That's the only problem with basketball, too. It's just like the lines aren't out all week like football since, the teams, they play multiple times a week, stuff like that. But looks like projection-wise, George Washington should probably win this game. So I'll agree. Plus, it's a little bit closer for them. They're not as far south, so maybe their fans travel a little bit better. Plus, these A10 schools, they don't have football teams, so fans are just all in on basketball. So maybe it kind of turns into a bit of a George Washington home game. So give me the Revolutionaries, take that one. And then the second game of that doubleheader, also on Peacock at 12:30. So that'd be like a 4 p.m. Yeah, 4 Eastern. Virginia Tech and Providence. So those two teams, power conference schools, maybe not as highly touted, but both, should be pretty competitive. Like I said, once again, both winning their first game with, let's see here. Providence took down Holy Cross 89-79, and then Vatech took down Charleston Southern 98-67. Stephen Vox was the leading scorer for Providence with 19 points. Toby Lawan for Vatech with 22. So yeah, looking at the projections, one site has Providence winning 73-70. The other one, Vatech 72-71. So should be a close game because, like I said, neither of these teams are really, they're probably not going to be competing with their conference. They could be bubble team, probably not Vatech as much. I think the ACC, I think like Duke, UNC, Louisville, NC State. There's just kind of a lot of teams in the ACC that are going to be towards the top. That might be a little bit tougher for Vatech. But if they get a win against a team like Providence, that could potentially boost their resume. So my just thing with this one, like I said, it is another neutral site game. But like I'm saying, granted, I don't know, Vatech football's been bad this year, so maybe the fans aren't as invested. But this game's closer to Providence. I mean, this one for sure is going to be a Providence home game. Like, Providence basketball fans are just nuts. And like I said, if they want to be a bubble team, make the tournament, games like this are ones you got to win, pick up good wins on your resume. So I'm going to go with the Friars to take this one. in a close game over Bot Tech. Then just kind of some other games to watch. We got Gonzaga, Oklahoma late night on ESPN. I think that's or ESPN2, 10:30 Eastern tip-off. That one's in Spokane. Gonzaga cruised to a win in their first game. They got guys like Tyon, Graham Foster, Graham Ike. I think they'll probably just be too much for Oklahoma to handle. So I probably got the Zags taking that one. Then there's just kind of some good mid-major games. San Francisco and Memphis at 3 Eastern on ESPN Plus should be a good one. That one's like a pretty close spread from what I remember. Trying to look. Charleston and FAU, they're once again doing it. Like I said, they had the whole like Field of 68 like tip-off marathon, but then they have some like invitational too. It was the same 3 teams last year. Where like Friday is Liberty and Friday's Liberty and FAU. And then Saturday's FAU and Charleston, and then I believe Sunday is Friday's Charleston Liberty, Saturday's FAU Charleston, and then Sunday is FAU Liberty. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting how they just do like 3 teams, and that's the same 3 teams. And also, all these games are just at Liberty has a very big advantage in this tournament because they host it, and then 2, they don't have to play back-to-back days like the other 2. It's kind of interesting, but that one should be. I mean, all 3 of those, like all Friday, Saturday, Sunday, should be good. And then what was the last? There's one other game I was looking at. Where'd it go? Georgia Southern and UNC Asheville wins that game on Saturday, but that should be a good one as well. Or was that one Sunday? No, I want to say that one was Saturday. Or am I tripping? Maybe it is Sunday. I'm not seeing it on here, so it must be Sunday. No, that game's on Saturday. I really should have wrote these down. I need to also just stop saying that. Where is it? But I don't know. UNC Asheville, Georgia Southern should be a good one. Oh, yeah, there it is. That's at 3 Eastern on ESPN2 or on ESPN Plus. UNC Asheville, I gave Wichita State a good game before Wichita State kind of pulled away. And same thing, Georgia Southern and ECU on opening night. It's a pretty solid matchup before the Pirates ended up taking that one, which it's like East Carolina's 26th straight home opener or like opening victory to start the year. So I guess they always just kind of play better or worse teams. But it's like East Carolina and Duke, 2 basketball powerhouses tied for the most consecutive wins on opening night. I thought that was kind of funny. Then moving on to Sunday, the games to watch. We got first one, Indiana and Marquette at the United Center. So the 2 teams kind of meeting in the middle there. And that one's an ESPN game too. Granted, I mean, ESPN doesn't have any NFL games, so it kind of makes sense that they're playing on ESPN. But that should be a good one. There's part of me that kind of wants to go to that. So both teams 1-0, teams that probably aren't getting talked about as like the top of their conference, but they're big brands. Let's be honest here. Indiana basketball, as much as people may want to say now Indiana's a football school, they're still a basketball school. So they're 1-0. Taking down Alabama A&M last night, 98-51. First game of the Tucker and Darian DeVries era for Darian DeVries and his son Tucker DeVries, who plays for the team, era for the Hoosiers. Marquette's already played 2 games. They're really packing in this first week. They beat Albany 80-53 on Monday, and then Southern 100-82 last night. Reed Bailey was the leader for Indiana in their win, scoring 21. And then Chase Ross, the Marquette leading scorer, with 19 points per game. So there's both. I mean, sometimes just looking at these stats, it's kind of really hard to get a lot off of one game, especially when both these teams play bye games. I know like this analysis maybe hasn't been like super in depth or super great. It's one of those things like, I'm gonna be honest, like I said, with all these games going on, you can't watch it all. So it's more just kind of like highlights or stuff I'm seeing on Twitter. But once we get like deeper into the season, have some more kind of data points to go off of, it'll be easier to kind of preview these. Both these have Marquette as a winning this game in like 1 to 3 points. So it should be a close game. But honestly, I don't know. Maybe I'm just reading too deep into this, but like that's going to be an Indiana home game at the United Center. I know it is kind of like in the middle, but Indiana basketball fans are crazy. They travel like crazy. So I'm going to go with the Hoosiers to actually take this one, go against the projections. Then two other power conference games. We got Texas A&M and Oklahoma State, former Big 12 matchup on Sunday as well. That one is at, I want to say 2 Eastern. Let's see here. Or yeah, 2 Eastern on ESPN2. So yeah, ESPN, man, it's going to be going with some good hoops games on Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon. And that one's in Stillwater, so I like that they're, like I said, playing a home game rather than, meeting in the middle like a lot of these other teams. So I'm a big fan of that. Both these teams also, again, won their first game. I'm kind of broken record here. With Oklahoma State taking down Oral Roberts 95-71. A&M took down Northwestern State 98-68. Leading scorers, Ruben Dominguez went for 18 for A&M. On the Oklahoma State side, Victorious Miller had 21 points. So looking at the projections here, both of them have Texas A&M winning a close game. And I'd probably have to agree with that. Like I said, Texas A&M was like one of the better teams in the SEC last year. Granted, they lost a good amount of their players. Like Wade Taylor's gone now. I'm trying to find their roster here. Sorry. Where is it? Dang, are they not? Am I tripping? Are they not supposed to be good this year? Maybe they're supposed to be bad. But they got Mackenzie Mbako as a transfer from Indiana. I was a big fan of his. I think he should probably have a pretty good game in this one. Geez, Pop Isaacs is still in school at Texas A&M. And Federico from Texas Tech. So they got some big guys that I don't know if Oklahoma State's going to be able to handle. So I am going to go with the Aggies to take down that one. And then the last kind of big game here, power conference game, we got Washington at Baylor on Sunday night. We got some Sunday night basketball on ESPN2. So they're really going all. Or that one's on ESPN at 8:30 Eastern time in Waco. So we got teams playing on campus, things you love to see. Looking at this one, we got Baylor projected to win by a couple. Is that double digits? Yeah, probably like close to like 7, 8, 6, 7, 8 point game. Both these teams won their first game. Washington beating Arkansas Pine Bluff 94-50. Baylor beat UT Rio Grande Valley 96-81. Cameron Carr was the leader for the Bears with 28 points. Haynes Steinbach, leader for Washington, with 21. Like I said, the Big 12 is pretty loaded this year. So that's why I feel like I probably haven't talked a whole lot about Baylor, just because, they're not on the same level as like Arkansas, or why did I just say Arkansas? They came up on their Southwest Conference, not Big 12. Houston, Texas Tech, BYU, Arizona was what I meant to say, not Arkansas. So for Baylor, yeah, they don't have any of their guys returning from last year. None of these names that I'm recognizing. So it's gonna be kind of this will be like a good kind of first watch of Baylor, see kind of who steps up for them. On the Washington side, is there anyone I'm really kind of missing? I just had the Big 12 or Big 10. I don't think so. Like I said, I think same thing. Washington is like one of those teams kind of struggled last year in the Big 10. Zoom Diallo is their only returning starter, 2024 McDonald's All-American. So it'll be interesting to see, can Washington kind of keep pace with Baylor in this one? I'd say probably not. Like I said, both, it's looking like it's going to be a high-scoring game. So give me the Bears, take that one. And then the mid-major game to watch on Sunday, this is another one I'm kind of debating going to. North Texas taking on Loyola Chicago. It is in Illinois. It's at Now Arena, home of the Bulls G League team. So it is not in Chicago, but it's definitely a lot closer of a neutral site for Loyola Chicago than North Texas. I can't imagine North Texas fans, like, it's going to feel like a Loyola home game. I'd be very surprised if it didn't. That one is at 5 Eastern. I don't know if it's on TV anywhere. Let me look. on the ESPN app here. Might not. Oh, it's yeah. It just says Marquee, which is like this Chicago like local network here that we get. So, yeah, we'll see. Maybe I just have to go then. So both these teams won their first game. Loyola's playing another game tonight against Mercer. So like I mentioned, Loyola won on a buzzer beater against Cleveland State. North Texas, however, they beat no clue what school this is. They're not Division I by a lot. For North Texas, they're led by Jashawn Stevenson. Scored 18 points in that one. Then Miles Rubin, who's been a really solid player for the Ramblers the last couple of years, led them in their win against Cleveland State with 16 points. The projections that I'm seeing in this one has it being a close game. One has 69-67 North Texas. The other is 69-66 Loyola Chicago. I'm going to have to go with Loyola Chicago in this one. It's just like I mentioned, it's a home game for them essentially. While they not look good against Cleveland State, sometimes, home opener or like opening game, you get off to a slow start. I got to think, especially then when you have a game like this coming up where you're almost prepping more for that than the mid-major or the low major you're facing in game one. So I think the Ramblers bounce back. They win again tonight, and I'm going to have them winning again here on Friday or on Sunday. So we'll close the show off with my final four picks for this season because I realized I have not yet given that. So there was 8 teams. I thought long and hard about this. There was 8 teams I ended up considering had in my final four at one point before I landed on these 4. And again, it is almost impossible to try to project the final 4 in November just because, like these teams, it's one of those things where it's like you just pick the 4 best teams. That's boring. I mean, not every year. Last year was definitely an anomaly with like all 4 1 seeds making it. It's usually not all 4 1 seeds. So like these aren't necessarily the 4 like projecting out. I don't think these necessarily are the 4 best teams, the 4 teams that I picked. But this is kind of just like looking at other people's bracketology, like projections, like on a potential bracket, and then trying to not just pick all the 1 seeds. This is what I ended up with. So the 8 teams that I guess I'll call these my Elite 8 teams. I have out of the Big Ten, Purdue and Michigan. Out of the ACC, I just have Duke. Out of the Big East, I just think UConn. I mean, a lot of people think St. John's, but I don't know. Just after their tournament bow out last year, I'm not super high on them as a tournament team quite yet. We'll have to see. Plus, I just think UConn's that much better than that. Not that much, but I do think UConn is the best team in the Big East. The Big 12, Houston and Texas Tech are my 2. I mean, I could make an argument for BYU. I mean, after that first game, you can make an argument for Arizona. So we'll see. The Big 12, I think, once again, is be just a very deep competitive league like they have been the last couple of years. Trying to think. So I did Big Ten, ACC, SEC, Florida, and Kentucky. And it's one of those things, I don't want to bias it too much off of, because it's almost too much of an overreaction of like you watch the Florida game on Monday and then be like, oh, they're not a Final Four team. I mean, I think it showed why some people have the concerns on why they're maybe not a Final Four team, but I still think they'll be in the running. So that's why I went with those 8 are probably that'll be who I say are my Elite 8. Excuse me. And like I said, feel free to drop yours in the comments. I want to hear other people's or your opinions on the teams I'm saying. My final 4. First, I'm going Houston. I think Houston is the best team in the country. I mean, they returned 3 guys from a team that low-key should have won the national championship a year ago. So to have that kind of returning depth, I'm going with the Cougars. Second, another team that made the Final Four last year, could be slightly biased. I almost didn't have them in just because I didn't want to be biased. Duke Blue Devils. I think Cameron Boozer is going to be really good. I think we saw a good game from Isaiah Evans in night 1. Like I said, I kind of talked about it earlier. Like I think they're deeper than last year. Like I think a lot of like the key reserves from last year's team didn't really have to do a whole lot when you have 5 guys that got drafted. Your entire starting 5 got drafted in the NBA draft. So I think those guys are going to be ready to take a bigger step, take a leap this year. Like I said, like Evans, like a Caleb Foster, like a Malik Brown. And then, I think they did a good job with the additions of Boozer, Dame Sarr. So I'm going to go Duke as my second Final Four team. And like I said, this isn't just the top four. Like if I went with just who I think the top four teams are, these first two I would have in, but the next two I would not. Third, I'm going Kentucky. I've seen a lot of people be high on Kentucky. I like the job Mark Pope has done there. I think in his second year, you bringing back a guy like Otega Owe. He's one of the best players in college basketball, as well as, just kind of their additions. I think the Kentucky Wildcats should be a good team. Do I think they win the SEC? No, Florida was my pick to win the SEC, but Kentucky can still compete. I mean, Jaden Quintanes is going to be, he's going to be a lottery pick or like top, he's be a first round pick. Colin Chandler had a really good game in his first game. I think this Kentucky team has the pieces to be a Final Four team. And then finally, I'm going UConn. As much as it pains me, I do think UConn is going to be back in the Final Four. I think last year is definitely a down year for them, but I think this team this year should be once again a Final Four caliber team, back to the level of the team from the last 2 years. I mean, they still got Caravan, still got Solo Ball. Silas Demery and Terrace Reed, I think, are going to be playing pretty big roles. I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of these teams I've already talked about a whole lot. Probably don't need to explain it a whole bunch. So that's what I'm saying. I got Houston, Duke, UConn, and Kentucky. If like I said, if I was just doing the top four, I'd go Duke, Houston, Purdue, Florida. And again, maybe after Monday's game, you don't have Florida as a top four team in the country anymore. That's fine. I also am probably going to talk about my poll. I like to do like the top 25. I think it's very easy to critique the AP poll voters. But then I think if you're going to do that, you kind of have to do the exercise yourself, and you realize it is more difficult. Granted, do I think some of the critiques of the AP poll in both football and basketball are definitely very fair. But I think, some people, they just like critique it and they don't do it themselves. And then you kind of realize doing it like, oh, hey, it's not as easy just putting 25 teams in. So maybe you don't have Florida as your number one team in the poll anymore. Maybe you don't have them as top 4 team in the poll, but yeah. So then for the national championship, I'm going to go Houston, UConn, with the Cougars getting the dub, finally winning Kelvin Sampson his first championship. Something it looked like they were going to do last year, leading most of that national championship game. But I think this year they finally get it done. So that's my pick for this season. Drop my games to watch for this week. So let me know what you guys will be watching this week. Let me know your guys' Final Four picks. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Like I said, I think we're going to be doing this Thursdays. I always say 6, but it'll probably end up being close to 6:15 just by the time I get everything set up and organized. So make sure to tune in to Fast Break here on the Variety Sports Networks. Whatever channel you're on here, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, all the above. Drop some comments so we can be talking college ball all season. Appreciate you guys for watching. I'll see y'all next Thursday. Peace.